Baby, every time I put that shell in my car sound like the chitty, chitty, bang, bang. And I know you're going to be like, well, Nay, you do use mid-grade. You're supposed to use, what is that you're supposed to use in German engineering? The premium. Bitch, we in a recession. Oh, my life. Hello there, love bugs. Hello there, bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and tip your favorite narrator via Cash App at $NayRob on YouTube. And if you are not already a part of this book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes you, can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Hey y'all, the paying members, they already know. Now, you all will know. Let's begin reading Angel on My Shoulder by Natalie Cole. Y'all, don't forget, the puppies are right here. Well, there's one and there's two. So if you hear snorts and grunts and stuff like that, you know it's the puppies. Well, Lulu's 3. The baby ain't a year yet. Singers are often asked about their musical influences. And for someone with a famous musician for a father, this question is one of the most common. But when people ask me if my father sang for me as a child, they seem disappointed by the truth. He never sang us romantic ballads like Mona Lisa. He sang gibberish songs that gave us kids a bad case of the giggles, and crazy rhyme and sound songs like the ones I learned later at summer camp. These all had the kind of completely silly lyrics that children have loved forever. I cherish these moments, and I love the fact that when he was home, he was just being dad. He wasn't performing. I think that because he was so serious with his career when he was with us, he just wanted to play. That's part of the blessing and the burden I inherited as a birthright. The blessing was that when he was home, he really spent what has become known as quality time with us. The flip side of that was that he was gone for weeks, sometimes months at a time. When you make your living as a singer, you have to go where the gigs are. And it's a toss-up because I respect my mom for getting to the money and having those 2 jobs, but at the same time, I really wish she just was more home because it made me resentful after a while when I'm like, God damn. So looking back on my childhood as an adult, I realized that my mom made a decision, and she chose to give us the best that she could financially so that we, especially me, didn't have to end up doing crazy shiz in the street. Either way, eventually I got into the streets and did street shiz. Whether she was there or not, I was going to head to them streets whether she was there or not. And that's the reality. Dad's music was great. But then there were so many great sounds that came into our ears when I was a child. So much wonderful music. There was always music playing at our house in one room or another. Every afternoon, my mother would go into the library and select something to listen to. It might be Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson, or the Jackie Gleason Orchestra, or Billie Holiday. They wanted us to have musical styles, jazz, classical, Broadway, rock, opera, pop, you name it. And we would catch every note of it. Early on, I was madly in love with Elvis Presley. Me too. I think maybe because when I was waiting for Soul Train to come on Channel 5, Soul Train came on at 5 o'clock for us in D.C. They always played Elvis Presley movies and John Wayne movies. So, I knew my boyfriend was going to be a white man with black slick hair that shook his booty. Child, not. Dad wasn't into it at all. At least not for himself as a performer. He used to say, Mr. Cole does not rock and roll. But Baba, my Aunt Charlotte, knew how much I loved Elvis and his music and took me to one of his shows at the Palladium. After that, I slept with the souvenir booklet from the concert under my pillow. I really feel so fortunate that my mom and dad didn't censor our music experience because it has had a strong influence on my life and career. Dad would bring home all kinds of music for us in his eclectic manner. He made a point of driving to a small record store in the poorest black part of central Los Angeles where he could purchase records by Moms Mabley, Red Fox, blues singers, and other performers who were only available on race records that were not sold in the regular record stores. Could you imagine? Pause. Could you imagine Nat King Cole just driving to the Waxy Maxy, going in there, and the women's looking at, is that Nat King Cole? Girl, if my grandmother would have seen Nat King Cole in the Waxy Maxy or the Kent Mill Records or Tower Records, whatever record store there was back then, I could see my grandmother throwing herself at that man. So my grandmother, she was my complexion. We were like the darkest people in our family at the time. So my grandmother and me wouldn't have been light enough for Nat King Cole. Because them dark-skinned men, they pays us no mind. We ain't light enough. It's like the only way a dark-skinned man will look at you is unless you almost the color of this shirt. The lighter, the better. So, me and my grandmother wouldn't have stood a chance with that thing. But I ain't heard. I am. I am. Because all the dark-skinned men that I thought was attractive always skipped over me to get to the red bone. Bitches. Capitol often gave him copies of their latest releases, sometimes in the candid hope that he would like a song and record it himself. That was one place where we really lucked out. Capitol was also the Beatles label, and I was thrilled when Dad came home from work with the one album every teenage girl coveted, Meet the Beatles. I was a head over heels Beatles fan. Back then, every teenage girl had a favorite Beatle. Mine was John. So I was the first on my block to have the Beatles album. And honey, it was one hell of a block. We lived at 401 South Murrayfield Road in Hancock Park, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Los Angeles. This was where the shells of Shell Oil lived. Speaking of Shell, forgive me. Shell, I don't know what the hell has happened with the shells. She called it the shells of Shell. Baby, every time I put that shell in my car sound like the chitty, bang, bang. And I know you're going to be like, Renee, you do use mid-grade. You're supposed to use, what is that you're supposed to use in German engineering? The premium. Bitch, we in a recession. So I was the first on my block to have the Beatles album. And honey, it was one hell of a block. We lived at 401 South Murrayfield Road in Hancock Park, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods of Los Angeles. This was where the shells of Shell Oil lived. The Chandlers, who owned the Los Angeles Times. The Vanderkamps, the family that owned the Vons supermarket chain. and Governor Pat Brown and his family. It was also where the Los Angeles chapter of the John Birch Society held its meetings. How exclusive? So exclusive that the neighbors tried mightily to exclude my parents when they first bought the house in 1948. It was a mansion by anyone's definition of the word, all brick. 12 rooms, 3 fireplaces, very East Coast looking, and just what my mother wanted. But there was one teeny problem. It seems that there was a restrictive covenant that went with the title to every house in Hancock Park, limiting ownership in the neighborhood to white folks who celebrated Christmas. Negroes, Jews, people of ethnic persuasions, and other undesirables were barred. When the Hancock Park Property Owners Association heard that my parents had bought it, they called a meeting. Yep, we got to discuss these niggas. The neighbors graciously invited my father to attend, but only to inform him why he couldn't live there. They actually told my dad that they didn't want any undesirables moving in. Neither do I, he responded, in the oft-repeated family story. And if I see any, I'll be sure to let you know. Nigga, who you talking to? Who you talking to? You know daggone well that if I sang, I could hunt one of your daughters if I wanted to, and did. But we'll get to it later. It's a conversation that should be had. Why black men desire white women so much. And I know some of you all are like, oh, it could be just a preference. I'm not talking about black men who just like what they like. Like they have a certain preference no matter what color skin it comes in, okay? But we're going to delve into that when it comes to the Nat Cole, all right? He ain't even, to me, one of the most attractive black men out there. We got far more attractive black men out there than the Nat Cole, okay? And just because you put a calcaline in your head, that don't make you cuter. But if you have something that you like, oh, I like funny women. Oh, I like my women to, be able to dance. I like my women with big butts. I like my women no breasts. And that is your preference no matter what the color, then I don't have a problem with that. But if you're choosing white women just because they're white women, and you have a fetish for that. Ooh, and I seen an Instagram where this white woman was like, let's get real. It's not our fetish. It's your black men's fetish to be with us. I said, ooh, she told y'all, because she ain't talking to me. That's part of my problem. She ain't talking to me. That's why I be getting in trouble. When people say crazy shit out their mouth, I be like, oh, you ain't talking to me. You might be talking to them bitches, but you ain't talking to me. After a great deal of legal maneuvering and a letter from my mother to Eleanor Roosevelt about the unfairness of it all, and despite a couple of shots fired through the front windows and a sign hammered into the lawn that read, "Nigga Heaven," my parents moved in. Well, there goes the neighborhood. In my mind, if you don't want me, I don't want you. That's how I feel. I don't know. If you don't want me here, fuck you. I'm okay over there in Michigan Park. Michigan Park, that's the affluent black neighborhood in D.C. I don't know if it's still like that because the white folks that moved in. But I'm okay over there in the PG County, one of the richest black counties in America. I think it was more so a point to prove, okay, I'm good enough to sing for your daughters, but I'm not good enough to live next door to your daughter. All this was before I was born. By the time I arrived, the neighborhood had adjusted to us, more or less. But we were still the only black people for miles around. I was born Natalie Maria Cole at 6:07 p.m. on February 6, 1950. at what was then called Cedars of Lebanon Hospital. I weighed in at 7 pounds, 11 ounces. I was my parents' firstborn child, but I have an older sister, Carol, also known as Cookie, and that takes some explaining.